Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us with yet another session for Google Educator Group's Asia Pacific Connect, Staying Connected 4.0. This is the fourth time we have done this event, and we have dozens of presenters from India all the way to Japan, where I live. So please check out some of the other sessions going on over the next 3 days. Now, I'm really excited about this next session because we have Craig Kemp, EdTech Ninja. I live in Japan. I got to call him a ninja. Sorry. Craig, if you are on Twitter, and we'll put his Twitter hashtag in the comments. If you're on Twitter and you don't have Craig, you should. Craig is originally from New Zealand, but now based in Singapore. He's an educational technology consultant. He works with schools, school districts, with companies. He helps companies develop their tech awareness, their use of technology. Craig will tell you a little bit more about himself and what he does in detail, but we are very, very lucky to have Craig here. And when he said, hey, I'd like to submit a proposal, we did not hesitate and jumped all over that. So without further ado, as I moderate the session, I will mute my microphone and my video, but I'll be in touch with you in the comments on YouTube. So I'm turning it over to Craig. Craig, thanks you so much for joining us.
Awesome, Nate. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And hi, everyone. It's great to be here today. An absolute pleasure to be here, actually. And Nate, absolutely flabbergasted with your description here. Thank you so much for being so kind and so generous with that as well. So I am coming to you live from sunny Singapore. And I say sunny Singapore, but I can hear some thunder in the background, which means it must nearly be 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m. here. And what that means is that thunderstorm time in this part of the world. But it's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to share with everyone today. Let me do a very quick introduction first. I'm originally from New Zealand, moved to Singapore 9 years ago. I love this part of the world in particular. My wife and I moved here, and when we moved here, we thought, what's the reason, what's our why for wanting to be in this part of the world? And we knew that we love to travel, and that's what's really kept us here for so long, throughout COVID, throughout everything, and we got 2 daughters aged 3 and 7, and they were born here, and this is home to them. We'll go home eventually, but we've got so much more we want to achieve in this part of the world first. And, I love my Asian community. I love my Asian travels. I love being able to connect and engage with cultures. But I do miss home. I really do. I've been in teaching and leadership for 17 years. For the past 2 years, or previously to this, I was the Director of Technology and Innovation at Stanford American International School here in Singapore. And now for the past 2 years, I've been working, like Nate said, as a EdTech consultant, working with schools and EdTech companies all over the world, helping them move from surviving to thriving. And one of the things I love doing is working with schools in many areas. I support them in strategy development with EdTech and innovation. I support them with professional learning. I have a team of amazing people at Ignite EdTech doing that as well. We work with EdTech companies to help build the bridge between industry and schools. There's a huge gap there, and we want to help train and educate these companies to be better at solving our problems in schools. And that's a lot of the work that we do now. And I'm launching something pretty exciting, which I'll share. You'll actually be the first to see this today, which is kind of exciting for me to share that. We've launched our socials just 2 or 3 days ago, but we're launching EduSpark at EduSpark World. Follow us now on Twitter. You can actually find us on all social channels at EduSpark World. On Instagram, it's eduspark.world. And you can connect with us there. We're launching a pretty innovative and forward-thinking professional learning platform for educators. And I'm excited to share a little bit about that with you today and my why for doing that. My link tree is there. Follow that link. You'll find all the connections you need to stay in touch with me and connect with me. But I wanted to start with my why. This is my why. And my why is my family. And when I think about what I do and why I do what I do, every answer is right here in this picture. I'm in Singapore because the opportunities it's provided to me to do better and be better with my family. It's provided me opportunities to connect to people from all over the world, to build businesses, to engage, to make a movement, to create change. But most importantly, My little one there, Chloe, she's 3 now, and she spent more than half of her life in a mask through COVID. And that's kind of scary and kind of sad for me. I think about the culture that we bring as a family, and this, almost, pulling her back from letting her have her own personality and having it shine in the community that we live in. And I'm hopeful that we're moving forward beyond that now. But, she's such a bubbly little cute thing. And, I want her to hit this world running. And again, my older daughter, Ella, she's 7. And this is a big reason why we're here, to immerse ourselves in the culture, the melting pot of culture that is Singapore and all the countries around us. And of course, my beautiful wife, Nicola, that helps me be better and pushes me to be better and encourages me to do things each and every day. So my why, and that's a big part of what I want to talk about today, this whole idea of that culture eats strategy for breakfast, the whole idea of making sure we know our why, both in our personal life and in our professional life, that drives what we do. And throughout this GEG APAC Connect event, and through other ones that you'll come across and learning events, July and August are the months of learning online, particularly for conferences. And the one thing I want you to remember is why. Why am I here? Why am I doing this course? What am I going to take away from this, and how am I going to implement it? So, let's start off with a little bit of an overview. What's happening in the world right now? For the last 18 months, we've been hit with this pandemic, moving towards, what the Singapore government describes as an endemic, a place that we want to move to where we create the new normal, and we live and breathe in this world that is normal, and we treat COVID in a way that's like the common flu, and we're moving towards that way. And I'm excited every day to see some developments in that, particularly with, in this part of the world, high vaccination rates, which is really exciting. But over the past 18 months, I've experienced a lot. Prior to COVID, I was flying in and out. I was in 12 countries within 4 months, supporting schools and developing and leading professional learning and creating strategy and rolling out device programs. And for the last 12 to 18 months, I've been online doing that. And the way that the community, the education community, has embraced that, the way you have embraced that, is powerful. It's so exciting. And these are the things that I noticed. I noticed that we adapted to change really well. There are mixed views on this remote learning and remote teaching side of things. And it's no different to the different views we have in a school on a new math program or a new literacy program or a new tech tool. It's the same thing. We're always going to experience this change fear, this change scare. And we have to change our mindsets, and we have to make sure, we're adapting to that. Our budgets have dropped, so our priorities have adapted, but our priorities haven't adapted away from technology. They're adapting towards technology. Just as much as I know the power of being connected online. Our professional development options are growing and growing and growing. And now we're able to, on the tips of our fingers, connect to opportunities like this. And I'm going to share a little bit later on about where we're taking that a step further with EduSpark. And when we launch in August, the ability to connect and engage with the best and the best all over the world, with some pretty cool tech features inside that as well. And we have been in our world of teaching, throughout COVID, we were throwing all these free tools to use. Every single company under the sun wanted to give you a free go at their program and platform, hoping that you'd love it and be addicted to it and pay afterwards. But what that's actually caused is a lot of stress. And I'll talk about that in a moment, this fatigue of using tools, and it's not good. We have to get to a point where we use technology for better, where we use technology to support growth and development. And that's something that, I really want to push and promote here today, is that technology is good, technology is great, but use technology where appropriate. Technology should add value to learning, not be the learning. And that's a really important part of what we're trying to achieve. And we have to focus on that strategy, but more importantly, we have to build the culture. We're in a world where we still have this inequitable access to devices, and we need to change that. The Singapore government created a 7-year plan for device rollouts in schools. And then when COVID hit, and immediately they did what everyone else should have done. And they said, we have to invest here, and we have to invest now. And the Minister of Education came out and he said, we are investing in our future. we are doing an injustice to our kids by not providing them with devices. They are missing out on learning, and we have to change that, and we have to change it now. And they changed their strategy to be a strategy that's proven to be one of changing a 7-year strategy to a 1 to 2 year strategy. And I'm in awe of what they've done, and I hope more governments follow that in suit and focus on this and provide access to learning devices in schools as well. And across this time working in schools, I've come across 3 different types of teachers. The teachers that thrived, the teachers that dominated this online learning world. They tried new things, they took risks, maybe you, because you're here today. And then we've got this huge chunk, 60, 70% of people that just survive. They just clung on to what was around them. And then we had those 10% of people that gave up. Like, I'm done. I'm new to this, or I've been at this for ages. This is not for me. I'm not ready to relearn and unlearn and do these new things. It's not for me. And it's sad, but also, it's good in some ways. We've been able to move people on, look after their mental health and well-being, and at the same time as a school move forward, and get that trajectory moving forward. Because in a school, we often do this. We're too busy. No thanks. We're not interested in the new innovation or the new thing out there. And we ignore it and we push it away. And we need to be better at saying, yes, please show me what you got. Tell me what you got. Tell me how this is going to solve my problem and let me try it. Jump in, take risks, stop saying no, and moving on to that opportunity, because you never know when that round wheel is going to come at you. You never know when that square wheel is going to be replaced by a round wheel. So we have to be innovative, we have to be forward thinking, and we have to push boundaries. We have to try new things. And a lot of the things that I'm noticing as I continue on fit really well into this diffusion of innovation model. The whole idea of the people in our school fit into this category. And I know that when you think about the people in your school, your colleagues, your friends, your leaders, they all fit into one of these categories. And if you have a school of innovators, I want to be there, because that's amazing. I've never seen it. If you have no laggards, again, I want to be there. I've never seen it. Laggards are the people that will push back on no matter what change you offer them or throw at them. They're the people that say, no, we're not going there. This is the way I've always done things, is probably something that they mutter out of their lips. But, they're the sort of people that we have to change, but we can't invest our time in initially, because you'll give them 10% of your time and they'll zap 90% of your energy. It's not worth it. The place to invest initially is in your early adopters and your early majority, because that's where you're going to see movement. That's where you're going to get change. And that's where you build your culture. That's where culture starts building, the whole idea of culture eating strategy for breakfast. Because if we build a culture where people want to change, where they want to grow, where they want to develop, where they want to continue to add things to their toolkit, then we continue to be able to support children in the way that they know best. We all know that kids know more than we do when it comes to technology, and that's okay. Don't push back against that. Harness it. Let their voice be heard and bring them on board, because then we can bring the late majority on board. And then, we can work towards supporting these laggards to be confident and competent in the way they use technology in our schools. And I mentioned earlier on about this whole idea of too much tech causing us stress. And unfortunately, a lot of that is because poor strategic development. And even more of that is because of a poor culture in our schools. If we want to be strategic, first we have to have a culture where people want to change, where they want to learn, where they want to grow, where they're provided time to do that. And often in our schools, we don't do that. And we can't move to a strategic development plan because people aren't willing to move and change and grow. So unfortunately, more tech in our schools and these free offerings has just been too much. We can't keep throwing things at people. We need to continue to use tools and use things and continue to learn to develop and grow. But we have to find the things that are best for us. We have to come to a place where we can do things in one place. We don't want a stack of 20 tools when we can have a stack of 3 that do things just as well. So it's about finding the right things, being context specific, thinking about the uniqueness of your school, and of course, reducing stress and being strategic at the same time, because the whole idea of culture and strategy can go hand in hand if we choose to let it do so. And this is something that I always share. If you've been to my presentations before, this is something that I always talk about. the whole idea that Simon Sinek talks about, and Simon Sinek is a role model of mine, and it's someone that I look up to and a mentor, and he says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I'm a big believer in this, and I mentioned it at the start where I talked about my family. My family is my why, and we can think about this in the sense of a professional life, but we can also think about this in the sense of a personal life. If we're thinking about the decisions we make that change culture or change the feeling in ourselves, then we have to think about why we're doing it. Just like in our schools, when we enter using a new technology, a new professional learning portal, a new tech tool that's going to enhance reading, we have to say to ourselves, why? What is this going to improve in the daily practice? What is our goal? And why is this tool going to add value to that? Why are we wanting to bring this new tool in? And then how are we going to use that data to inform decision making? So in his book, Start With the Why, Simon Sinek, and this is currently, I'm actually going back and I'm rereading this. This is my current read. And I've been a little bit stuck on it the last few weeks because of some of the developments with EduSpark. But I'm going back to read this for the second time. And when you reread books that you love, you find new things every time. And one of the things that I've come back to understanding better is this circle here that he calls the golden circle. And here it's at the epicenter of everything we do is the why. Once we know our why, we can figure out our how. When we've figured out how we're going to use this, then we can figure out what we're going to do. And it's really important now. And I think about this all the time, and maybe I overthink it a little bit, but even when I was working in schools and planning and developing new pieces of learning, I wish I'd gone back and gone, why? Why do I want to do this? How am I going to do it? And what's the outcome going to be for my learners? It's a really nice way to start thinking about things without necessarily overthinking things. And I want to jump on this opportunity to also introduce the SAMA model. And in the YouTube chat, I'd be curious to see, any show of hands or any ideas around what it is that you do currently. So, when I think about the SAMA model, I'm curious to know how many of you know what the SAMA model is and how many of you think about the SAMA model when you're introducing technology into your classroom or your school. The same thing goes for the TPAC model, and there's many other models out there. Essentially, the SAMA model is a way of thinking. It comes from an amazing guy called Ruben Putendera, who I've had the pleasure of learning with and chatting with now many, many times. And actually, I've learned a lot from. And one of the things he says is that this is not a ladder. Don't think about the SAMA model as a ladder. You got to start at the bottom and work your way up. No. What this is a way of thinking. When we bring into play a new tool or a new piece of technology or a new innovation, what we can very quickly do is look at it and go, I wonder if this is going to provide us with the opportunity to be new, be unique, be transformative, not just enhance learning, but transform learning. How are we redefining the learning process? How are we modifying the learning experience that I'm putting at my learners? So when I think about an example like writing, I think, I walk into a school and my daughter's using a book and she's writing in a book, and the teacher says to her, let's try something new. Let's use Google Docs. And, for me, that's a direct substitution. It's no change. There's no change to her ability to write unless she's far more tech savvy with a computer than with a pen or a pencil. Then that's the only functional change. But what we can do then is look at a tool like Google Docs and go, well, let's augment this experience a little bit. Let's add some functional improvement. Let's allow her to get peer feedback. So we'll open up that functionality. And then we go, let's modify the learning experience and go, instead of just doing that, let's add teacher feedback by adding Mote in here. And let's add Mote as an extension. And let's add Mote as a way of giving audio feedback to her writing, because I know that as a learner, she's going to get that feedback much quicker and be able to act on that much faster when I'm fast and be able to react to her learning as she does it. But better yet, I could redefine that learning experience. I could app smash, and I could bring in things like Flipgrid or other tools or things to bring in here to enhance that learning experience even more and redefine, the learning experience of writing to become something that was previously inconceivable. So as you create learning experiences and you think about the learners in your school and your classroom, think about the SAMR model in the back of your mind. Think about how you can create experiences that transform learning. And to me, that's the most important, because we're in a world where anything is possible. We're at a world where technology changes so fast that if we don't keep up, we get left behind. Days and weeks can go by without us being able to catch up. I love this. And this is something we used at my old school at Stanford when we developed our model for technology integration in our school. And that's the whole idea of creation over consumption. The whole idea that we want our learners to not just consume, but create. And yes, there's a place for consumption. But do we want consumption to be the be-all and end-all of the learning experiences? And unfortunately, in some of our schools and in some of our, particularly here in Asia, a lot of our schools and our governmental practices are very heavy on consumption. I've got a lot of Singaporean friends and a lot of Korean friends that send their kids to hours and hours on end of tutoring. And I'm not saying it's not good, but I'm asking you and I'm asking them, is this what we want from them in the future? Are we creating opportunities for them to be problem solvers, or are we creating opportunities for them to tick a box and be an A+ student? How are we actually providing opportunities to create and not just consume? And I think Seymour Papert says it really well. He says the role of the teacher is to create the conditions for invention rather than to provide ready-made knowledge. There is a place for rote learning, by all means, times tables. I learned times tables by rote learning, and it's the best thing I've ever done. Repeat, 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 you've got it. By all means, but that's not the way the world works. And when we look at the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report, this is something that came out in December of 2020, and I'm looking forward to their post-COVID update, hopefully at the end of this year. What are the top 10 skills that our kids are going to need when they leave school in 2025, 4 years from now, 3.5 years from now? What are the learners going to need? So we're talking here grade 8, grade 9 kids. What are they going to be doing when they leave school? And the statistics and the data shows, and this is, by the way, a huge data set. And you can jump into the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report. And it's about a 400-page document. This is a tiny snippet of that. And there's so much detail there that you can jump into. If you're a data person, you're going to love it. It comes from such rich data and resources that this data makes me go, wow. I look at these top 10 skills and I think to myself, are we doing our kids justice when we teach them using technology? Are we creating an opportunity for them to be analytical thinkers? The 50% of these top 10 skills are problem-solving skills. Are we actively teaching problem-solving skills, analytical thinking skills, creativity, critical thinking, ideation skills? Do we do that? And do we do it well enough? I'd love for you to think about your context. What do you do? And is it good enough? And if you're here learning, I'm guessing that you're the one doing pretty amazing. What about the people in your school that are struggling with this? What about the people in your school that don't know how to explicitly teach these things? When I look at this, and only 20% are self-management skills and 10% working with people skills, I think to myself, what can I do to change the way I teach and I learn? And this has been a huge factor, not just for the work I do with schools and with teachers, but the work that I've been doing with the EduSpark team and developing a platform for adult learning and thinking about the ways we learn now and the way we need to learn in the future and be adaptive and get the best of the best when we can do it. And, I'm very curious when we look at these, and I want you to look at these right now, 10 skills. How many of these skills would you explicitly teach every day? That you would use every day, whether you're a leader, whether you're an EdTech company, whether you're a teacher? How many of these would you do? Count them up now. And I want you in the chat box in YouTube, or on Twitter by tagging me at Mr. KempNZ, or on any other social platform using the hashtag GEGAPAC, I want you to think to yourself, how many of these do I explicitly teach, explicitly in my practice? And I want you to do what I call the fist to 5 scale. Type it in the chat now. A fist, or 0, is I don't explicitly teach any of these skills. A 5 is I explicitly teach all of them, and everything else between that. So fist, none of them. A 1's probably 1 or 2, a 2 being 3 or 4, a 3 being 5 or 6, a 4 being 7 or 8 or 9, and a 5 being 10. I'm curious to know how many you explicitly teach, and here's a look at them once more, because we're in a world now where we need to learn to unlearn. We need to learn to unlearn so we can relearn. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat as well. And I'm not going to go into them now, but I'll come back to it later. I'd love to know what you're doing to change that. If you're a 0, a 1, or a 2, or a 3, what are you going to do to make sure that you change the way you do things, that you create this culture where you want to change, where you want to grow, where other people want to join you on this movement? Because that's what's important here. And I think about this whole concept and idea of learning to unlearn. And I'll talk about Alvin Toffler in a minute, because he says he's a futurist and he says some amazing things around this concept. But the whole idea of learning to unlearn is that culture of mistakes are okay. Let it happen. We tell our kids all the time to make mistakes and that we learn from our mistakes, and that's how we learn. But as adults, we never do it. We never do it. We never jump into uncomfortable situations and do something that stretches us and pushes our boundaries. Why? Because it's uncomfortable. Why? Because we're not willing to change the way we do things. We need to learn that whole concept of unlearning, because if we want to unlearn, we can then move to relearning. And in this constant time of change, this critical skill is important not just for you or me or the kids in your class, but for everyone, parents, grandparents. We're in this world where life is significantly different. And I don't like to talk about the whole idea of the new normal, because, I think it's overused and under-evidenced and shown. But, I want to literally create a new normal that's right for us. And we have that opportunity to do that. So how can you embrace this as a learner? How can you embrace this as a leader? And what skills do you need to learn and unlearn? For me, I know that I need to be better at taking on new things and trying new things. And sometimes I feel I do too much of it, but I feel like I do too much of it in the wrong areas. So being really specific about, what is my role and what are the things that I can do to push boundaries here? And I'm doing that right now as a context for you within EduSpark, the platform that we're building, and thinking about, my role is to get the best of the best in the business in here, because I want everyone to access the highest quality of learning. And for me, I need to unlearn my ideals of what I think is the best and listen to people more about what is the best. And this is a perfect example of what Alvin Toffler says. He says the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So I challenge you, what are you going to unlearn today? What do you need to unlearn this week? And what do you need to relearn over the next months to be better? Better at being more active with these top skills, or being better using better technology to engage my learners, or encouraging other people to jump on board and be a part of it. And I wanted to share a couple of things here. The whole idea of, we've got this why, we've got some of the what, but what about the how? How do we actually move people? It's all good saying, we need to move them, but how do we actually do it when we've got people that push back on us so much? And I think this is something that I've developed over the past months, really, as I work with schools on building culture and strategy for being successful with EdTech, not just now, but sustainable approaches for being EdTech. When I walk out that door of your school, I don't want to be back. Probably a bad model for a consultant to do, but for me, I want to impact change and I want to make change happen. And how to do that is building a team of people that want to be involved in it, building a culture where people are going to be leading it themselves. And that's where it starts. It creates a plan. that's not led by those people at the front, the tech gurus, probably you, but the teacher next door model, the teachers next door who are in that lower tier, who are the laggards maybe, who are the late adopters, the people that we need to be voices of change. And then we need them to lead the PD. You don't need me or you leading the PD because we're the tech gurus. We're the people already doing it. We're the innovators. The late adopters aren't going to listen to us. They're going to listen to the early adopters. The laggards aren't going to listen to us. The laggards might listen. They just might listen to the late adopters. So we can get them on board and leading PD. That's the journey and shift we want to make. And we need to share, and we need to be open, and we need to create this culture where sharing is caring. And, my 3-year-old came home from school just before she finished, and she kept saying to me, Daddy, sharing is caring. And I love that idea, and we need to do that more as adults. The whole idea of me being on Twitter and connecting with 45,000 people all over the world is because I love to share, and I love to learn with other people in a global community. And this whole idea of rewarding growth and saying, well done, you haven't achieved it yet, but you are kicking butt. You're doing an incredible job, and we can make change from that. And then we co-teach, we get some results, and then we reiterate. We can come back to this team and we plan again, and we lead more PD, and we find the gaps, and we continue to plug those holes so that we can continue to move forward. And that's the whole idea behind what we're trying to do, this whole post-COVID action plan. How do we move to a place where we're comfortable, this new normal that's a bit uncomfortable to talk about? The whole idea is that it starts with knowing your why. Do you know your why as an individual? If you went into an elevator right now, and for me, this is the whole idea of being able to pitch to someone in an elevator, and it's a cool activity to do with your teachers, is say to them, what's your why? If someone jumped in an elevator right now with you and they said, why do you use technology in your school? What would you say? Would you be able to answer it? Would it be satisfying to a parent, to an owner, to another teacher, to a principal, to a student? What's your why in those situations? It's a cool activity to do with your teachers to find the common areas, the common themes. And it also brings out about identifying problem areas and then finding solutions for those, whether it's a tech tool or whether it's bringing someone in externally to support you. And then you need to build on building capacity. That's what we talked about before. Asking what worked, what didn't work. When we were remote learning, what was hard, what was easy, what was successful, what was not. And then we build that culture where people care, where people want to change. That's when strategy can start. We can start being strategic, but we can start being strategic together. And when I think about how fast technology changes, I think about this one story that I always tell, but it's something that sticks with me is, I used to do a lot of work in my schools, both in New Zealand and here in Singapore, with looking at the transition of kids from elementary or primary school to middle school or to secondary school. And we'd talk about change, and we'd talk about how fast things change, and we'd talk about the rate of change, and we talk about technology, but we also talk about how lots of things change. When you move from primary to secondary, you go from one teacher often to multiple teachers. That's a huge change to get used to. But you also change the way you maybe do things. Now you might be moving to a one-to-one device program, or you may be moving to new technology tools or new things that make you feel uncomfortable, or the need to be more organized or pack your own lunch. All of these things come into play. And I always do this, and you have to excuse my Kiwi accent here, but I put these discs on the table and I say to the kids, what do you think this is? And I had this one time with this one girl, Mr. Kim, Mr. Kim, Mr. Kim, I know exactly what it is. Mr. Kim, Mr. Kim, Mr. Kim, I know what it is. And, this one girl, and you'll have kids like this in your classrooms or in your school. And I knew that she was this know-it-all girl. And part of me, and it's kind of evil to think about now, but a part of me wanted her to be wrong in the most appropriate way. But I wanted to prove her wrong. But I thought, let's wait here. I said, just hold on a sec. Let's have everyone's thoughts here. So they all started chatting, and they were all adamant they knew what it was. So I thought, right, let's hear it. And I pointed at this girl, and she put her hand up with this confident standing up in her body, and she puffed her chest out and looked at me with a smile and looked at her classmates, and they were all nodding at her. And she goes, that's easy, Mr. Kim. This is just a 3D printed version of the save icon. And, it made me laugh. Like, I laughed out loud. And it was funny because to her and to the rest of those kids, they had no idea about the past of technology. They had no idea what had happened before them. They had no idea that this was how we survived to save our documents, and I showed them 1.44 megabytes is what this held. And on this disk, I'd be able to hold my games. I'd have the Snake game on here. I'd have Pac-Man. I'd have all sorts of things. But I'd also have documents, my Microsoft Word documents, and I'd have, notes, and I'd have all sorts of things. But it would be 1.44 megabytes, and then it was full. And I say to them, do you know how much 1.44 megabytes is? And I take out my phone and I take a picture. And I say to them, this photo that I just took cannot fit on this disk. It is too big to fit on this disk. And we used these, 15 years ago. This is what we were doing. And now I can get a thumb drive the size of my pinky fingernail that holds full-length movies, hundreds and hundreds of hours of the highest quality information. That's how quickly technology changes. And that's why we need to keep updating. And as teachers, we need to stay ahead of the game. I really quickly wanted to share with you a case study from my old school, Stanford American International School here in Singapore, a K through 12 school, 3,200 students, across 2 campuses, IB curriculum with US Common Core standards, a big school. But we pushed boundaries. And about 6 years ago, we started creating this culture, a culture where innovation matters, where change matters, where we support you. We invested in people, and we developed this culture where people wanted to learn. They wanted to be at the forefront of change. They wanted to use technology in the classroom, and we put human resources first. We put people in their classrooms and said to them, here's a coach. We will help you. We'll hold your hand. We'll make this better. We'll make it amazing. We provided them with innovative professional learning opportunities. Here, you can see them using VR headsets. We bought VR headsets and kits. This is back when Google Expeditions was still around. And I know that's moved across to some culture stuff now. And I know there's some other amazing tools available like HoloGo World. If you're into AR in particular, you should check out HoloGo World. In my mind, one of the best companies coming out in this space right now, heavily focused here in Asia, and always interested in partnering and collaborating. And if you wanted to learn more about HoloGo World, please do reach out, and I'm happy to share that as well. But providing opportunities to be innovative, providing opportunities to connect and engage in technologies that are new, that are different, that are inspiring, that are encouraging us to do things differently than we did it before. And then we did the same thing with our kids. This is 5 years ago. These photos are 5 years old, and this is us using Google Expeditions and our kids leading the learning experiences. And, this wasn't an hour lesson, and it was closing them off from the real world. And now I look at AR and go, wow, why weren't we doing stuff like that, like in HoloGo? But now I look at this and go, we were innovative at the time. We were cutting edge. We were doing some pretty cool things. And it was because we encouraged our teachers and we gave our students a voice. We created our Techsperts program on the right here. We created this culture where learning and innovation was important, because if we were to move forward strategically, we needed everyone on board. We needed every stakeholder, kids, teachers, parents, leaders, community to be involved. And you can see here on the left, we worked with a Finnish company from the creators of Angry Birds, creating a new game. And our kids were involved in creating characters and doing alpha and beta testing. We put our hands up and we tried new things and we took risks, and sometimes it didn't work. But at the end of the day, these kids are kicking butt now. These kids are way ahead of it. The teachers are way ahead of it. I see teachers leave the school and moving to other schools and are embracing technology and leading technology in their schools at a place where they thought they were a late adopter at Stanford. And it's exciting to see, as a Google school, pushing all of these things was incredible for us as a base to make sure we had, minimum expectation. We actually brought non-negotiables in that made all of our teachers be required to be Google certified level 1 educators, the bare minimum that we required. Because if we were to be successful strategically moving forward, we needed to know that our teachers had a minimum level of expectation, that they had a minimum level of skill set. And setting that non-negotiable now, as you come into the school, you need to get that before you jump in here, because that's the way we do things here. And that culture is there because we started from the beginning. Because as Dexter Yeager says, you'll never know where you are. You'll never leave where you are until you decide where you'd rather be. And I love that mindset. I love the idea of that. When I think about how do I build capacity in my people? How do I move this forward? How do I stay relevant? Well, I stay relevant by understanding the trends, by listening, by being at places like this, by engaging with the GEG community, by being on Twitter, by learning about new things, and by jumping on what I'm going to share with you soon as well, the new ways of learning. Seeking out opportunities and saying, it's okay if I don't know everything. Let's get someone to help me. And if I do know something, I create opportunities to do things differently. I take risks and I try new things. And more importantly to me, it's all about PLNs, your professional learning networks. For me, it's Twitter. That's where I go to. That's where I engage. That's where I learn. I do lots of stuff on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, but they're not my comfort place. Twitter is my comfort place. Twitter is where I learn. Twitter is where I share, and Twitter is where I engage. And if you're on Twitter, please connect with me. Please follow me at Mr. KempNZ. And again, my link tree is at the bottom there. Go to that link, and it will open up all of the things that you need to know to connect and engage with me and the people that I work with as well. But creating and sharing to me is more than just creating things and putting it out there. It's about telling your story. How do you move to a place where people want to follow you? No longer are you a follower, but you're a leader. How do you move to that space? And it's about creating an authentic story with evidence and examples and exciting things that you're doing and showing them that it's easy and that you're there to help them. Because at the end of the day, no one's going to give this to you on a silver platter. They're not. It starts with you, and it has to start with you. And one of the ways that I'm trying to help in this is the way I share on Twitter, and I know that lots of people here do the same. And one of the things I do is I have a podcast. And my podcast is called the Ignite EdTech podcast. And the Ignite, I skipped over that, but it's called the Ignite EdTech podcast. And the Ignite EdTech podcast is a place that you can find on any podcast channel. And every week I drop a new episode. I'm taking a break for 3 weeks with my family. But the Ignite EdTech podcast, every week I interview someone in my network. I share some tips and advice, give free tools, give ideas. So jump on that. We're 55 episodes deep now, and you can jump on and learn every Friday morning here in Asia. We drop a new episode, so check that out. And you'll find that in my link tree link there as well. But as I get to finishing this up here in the next sort of 7 or 8 minutes, I wanted to talk about a model that a good friend of mine and actually co-founder of EduSpark, Andrew Mowat, talks about. And Andrew talks about this model by David Rock called the ages model. And this is where, we look at things and we go, right, ages, attention, generation, emotion, and spacing. And we think about our learning experience here. I'm not going to dive deep into this, but I wanted to bring it to your attention to maybe go away and search David Rock ages, because there's a lot of things that he shares. The whole idea of social learning that actually amplifies this impact of the ages model. And the ages model is something we're bringing into EduSpark. The way that, how do we engage people? How do we bring attention? How do we bring emotion? How do we close this learning loop? We do so much learning, but we forget about this engagement factor, the community factor, the ability to share and engage with people, and the spaces to be provided to do that. And, Ellen November says, learning is where the work is. So you say to yourself, who's doing the work? Who owns the learning? Who's working harder? If I'm the one working harder, then I'm doing all the work. I'm doing all the learning. If my kids are working hard or my participants in my program are working hard, then they're doing the learning. And that's something to think about when you create an experience. You use the SAMA model to create this experience and you go, right, who's doing the learning? Who's doing the work? Where does this sit? Because something that we've sort of been amplified here during COVID is that traditional professional development models are broken. They don't work. And that's what sparked us to create EduSpark. And if you'll indulge me for a few minutes, I wanted to share a little bit about EduSpark. And I haven't shared anything about this publicly yet. We've set up our Twitter page, our social handles, our landing page. And we haven't told anyone anything. So you're the first to see a little bit of a teaser and a taste of what this is all about when we launch in August. But, we're helping, create a movement, create a change for professional learning. We want you to be in a place where learning matters, where learning changes. And EduSpark is where we believe that happens. EduSpark.world. Again, the link is in my link tree there. You'll be able to find it. Type into your browser now, eduspark.world. You'll see a landing page. Type your email in, and we'll give you updates as we go. There's no obligation. We'll share that with you, and we'll update you. And over the next 2 weeks, we have some pretty awesome announcements, some pretty amazing technical announcements, some things that no one else does, some incredible people coming on board. We have a social reach of our creators of over 1 million people. You're going to recognize some of these names, and they're going to blow you away. And it's the new way to learn, develop, and grow. If you're a K-12 educator or leader, this is going to be the space you want to be in. And we're launching in August, so it's a very tight runway for us, but we're a one-stop shop for learning, an all-you-can-eat Netflix-style buffet of learning. You come in here and you get access to everything. It's high quality. We're going to be launching with over 60 courses that are synchronous and asynchronous, and the ability to connect with people from all over the world. These courses are going to be in literacy, numeracy, EdTech and innovation. They're going to be in diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, leadership, well-being, inquiry, self-directed learning. You name it, they're going to be there. And they're going to be people that you know of, people that you've heard of. And it blows me away when I look at the back end here and I look at the names, but I also look at the underrepresented voices, the people in the world that have something to share, that need to be amplified. And we're doing that too. So here's a quick sneak peek of what we're going to see in here. EduSpark, and I've just put 1 or 2 images in here because I didn't want to share too much and give too much of a teaser, because we want to go out with a bang in a week or so. But the things that we're going to bring here: a diverse range of learning programs in K-12, global thought leaders, underrepresented voices, access in this all-you-can-eat buffet level. Diversity, equity, inclusion, justice at the forefront of our minds. I'm a white male consultant. I am the epitome of what we often see in this learning world. And I want to be the one making this change, making sure that we have the best of the best from every corner of the globe, every race, every geography, genders, ability, you name it. We're going to be making sure that we amplify it in here. So you're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be easy to use. The experience is going to be so simple that you don't have to learn how to use the technology. You can embrace the learning. And in my opinion, the community is where we close the loop, where we connect, we engage. And I'm not going to go into those details now, but the details that you see here are some examples of what our dashboard looks like for a school. And for a creator, we actually give opportunities to create data, to gather data, to show progress, to support and amplify voices, and to get certification and eventually accreditation as well. So that's EduSpark. I've given you a taster and a feel. Go and check out eduspark.world, and I hope to see you there as well. And follow us on social media as we share a little bit more in the coming weeks. And I share a little bit more and give you some tasters of the amazing things that are coming. Because as you can tell, I'm pumped. And it's not very often I get this excited about something and I invest so much of my time and energy into. We're creating something that's going to get you thinking and moving here. And I've just shared this with a couple of schools this week. And we've got buy-in from 3 large international schools here in Asia already. And I don't even have a platform to show them. So that shows you, what I've been able to share with them. And what buy-in we've got already. If you want a more of a detailed input over the next couple of weeks, I'll jump on a 30-minute call with you. Just reach out to me through the link tree there, and I can give you some more details, whether you want to be a creator and a sharer or you're interested for your school. I'd love to give you a deep dive into it. So let me finish off here. With all this in mind, I want you to remember these things, because I've shared a lot in this presentation. But I want you to take this away, if you take nothing else away. We're the last generation to understand life before the internet. The last generation to understand life before a smartphone. The last generation to understand how to connect without using social media to do so. The last generation to be fluent translators of before and after technology. And I'm guilty of this, to wonder each morning, what should I do? Instead of picking up my phone and looking at my notifications to see what I missed. We have to plan with the future in mind. We have to know our why. We have to build a culture where we want to change so that we can be strategic to make those changes. And the reality is that if you don't stay ahead of the game, and I'm preaching to the converted here, but share this message back to your people, that if you don't stay ahead of the game, you're going to be left behind. I want to thank you very much for being here with me today. please feel free to share this YouTube out, connect with me. These are my social channels. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I've shared the EduSpark contacts there for Twitter and Instagram, the website as well. This is where you can find me. Take a photo of that. I'll share this out later as well. But I hope you enjoyed today. I hope you enjoyed the engagement and the discussion. And I hope that you take something from this that'll drive you forward. I know that I've looked at the schedule for the GEG APAC stuff that Nate and the team have put together, and it is spectacular. There's some amazing things happening. So do engage back there. And I'm sure, Nate will share a little bit more now about how you can do that. But I want to thank you. Thank you for engaging. I'll jump into the YouTube chat a little bit later on. But Nate, I'll hand it back to you, my friend.
Wonderful, Craig. Thank you so much. Your enthusiasm, your knowledge is infectious. Well, I guess the enthusiasm is infectious. The knowledge is impressive. So thank you so much for having us. You made a lot of really important points. Earlier on, you were talking about how we have to learn to unlearn. I know I put one of my favorite acronyms in the YouTube chat, FAIL, first attempt in learning. Really, really interesting to see the ideas that you've got coming, in particular with EduSpark. And yes, everybody, if you're watching this later or watching it now, Craig's Twitter account at Mr. KempNZ, I believe it is been put in the chat, and the slide deck that Craig showed you is in the chat as well. I'm really fascinated to see what is coming up with EduSpark. Really cool initiative, and if you're looking for content, that's the kind of thing I can definitely get on board with. And I think you're right, Craig. Actually, people that don't try to develop their skills as teachers, right? You are going to be left behind, aren't you?
Absolutely, you're so right. You have to seek out those opportunities, and you have to be willing to do that. And you're so spot on. And Nate, I'd love to have your voice heard in this platform as well. So when you're done here, when you get a spare minute, send me a message and we'll jump on a call, and I'll give you the overview of what we're doing, because I've seen some of the work you do, and I'm sure other people in here as well. I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah, well, you know what? Actually, you're making me think of another point that you made, and that's developing your PLN, your professional learning network. I got on Twitter, I feel a little bit late, which was probably about 8 years ago or 10 years ago. I can't exactly remember, but what a wealth of knowledge from all the different people that you meet on Twitter and other platforms. And in particular, like this weekend with GEG Asia Pacific Connects, event, we've got people from every country, for the most part, between India and Japan, sharing some kind of knowledge. And you're right, there is a sharing economy here. And if we share and learn from each other, we all just get better, and we can pass that on to our students, and we can model for them as well, right? They see that, oh, my teacher loves to learn and likes books and likes technology. And, we don't have to be super teacher overnight. It takes time, it takes years, but there is that commitment that you mentioned, right?
Absolutely. You're spot on. It's finding your context, finding your people, engaging there. It takes time and it takes energy. But honestly, like you said, I would not be doing what I'm doing now if I hadn't engaged with Twitter those eight or 9 years ago and started building a professional learning network. I probably wouldn't even be in Asia teaching, honestly. And it's blown my mind. It's changed my career. And honestly, I owe everything to my Twitter community, because that's where I go. If I have a question, I jump out there and I share and I engage. And I know you do the same. It truly is groundbreaking.
You put a lot more interesting stuff on Twitter than I do. But at that, I will say, there's a world out there, and there's a lot of people that have great ideas and are sharing. So please connect with Craig on Twitter and definitely follow him and keep an eye on his posts. And again, thank you to all the people that are presenting for GEG APAC weekend. We really do appreciate the time you've put into this and the energy and the excitement and that kind of thing. I put in the chat, so if you're watching this afterwards, there is a Google form you can fill out, and it will auto-generate a certificate for you. Sometimes people want to show their employers or their school leaders that, hey, I participated in this. I'm trying to learn on my own time over the weekend. So we want to recognize that as well. We're going to take the names and we're going to put them into a raffle on day 3, Sunday this week, for every different language group. and we're going to draw for Google Certified Educator Level 1 exam. So you can get a free exam voucher. So check in for our closing ceremonies on Sunday night. We'll get that information out there soon. So with that, we're going to give the very last word to Craig, and then we're going to end the broadcast.
Thanks, Nate. That's awesome. And, I can't encourage enough people to jump on and engage with the rest of this GEG event as well, and follow the hashtag GEGAPAC. If you're on social media, connect and engage. My last thing really is, if you need something, ask for it. If you want something, go get it. No one's going to give it to you on a silver platter. So jump out there and do it. And if you need help along the way, there's people out there that'll do it. Contact me, DM me, message me. I'm open and always open to conversation. So Nate, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for letting me share. And thanks for everyone for engaging, whether you're watching this live or back later. I look forward to connecting with you soon.
Thank you very much. And we'll end by saying thanks, Mon de Guzman, my partner in crime in this group, getting everything organized. It's not just me. It's a whole pile of different people doing this. Thanks, and take care. Enjoy the weekend, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.